The nanny quits in tears, but the millionaire discovers the reason and stops her. Natalie Miller never imagined that this would be the most difficult day of her professional life. After 2 years of dedicated care for little Lily, she found herself forced to make the most painful decision of her career as a nanny. It was with a broken heart that she walked into Christopher Harrison's luxurious office that Thursday afternoon. The businessman was focused on his papers when she knocked on the door asking permission to talk. As soon as he looked up and saw her red, tear-streaked face, he knew something was terribly wrong. "Natalie, what happened?" asked Christopher, setting aside his documents and rising from his leather chair. "Mr. Christopher, I need to talk to you," she said, trying to control the sobs that stubbornly escaped. "Of course, have a seat. Do you want a glass of water?" Natalie shook her head, remaining standing. Her hands trembled as she held a letter of resignation she had written the night before, after hours of sleeplessness. "I came here to hand in my resignation." The words came out as a whisper, but the impact was immense. Christopher felt as if he had been punched in the gut. Natalie was much more than an employee to his family. She had become a part of their lives, especially of Lily, his 6-year-old daughter, who had been diagnosed with mild autism 3 years ago. "What do you mean, Natalie? You're kidding me, right?" Christopher laughed nervously, hoping it was some kind of misunderstanding. "No, sir, I'm not kidding. I'm serious." Natalie held out the letter with trembling hands. "This is my resignation letter. My last day will be today." Christopher took the paper but couldn't focus on the words. His mind was racing, trying to understand what could have led Natalie to make such a sudden decision. "Natalie, did we do something? Did my wife or I offend you in any way? Is the salary not good? We can talk about anything." "No, sir, you've always treated me very well. Your family is wonderful, and I love Lily as if she were my own daughter." Natalie began to cry harder. "But I have no choice. I need to leave." Christopher watched this 26-year-old woman, who always had her brown hair tied back in a ponytail and green eyes that usually sparkled with joy when she was with Lily. Natalie was originally from Chicago, but had moved to New York 5 years ago in search of better opportunities. She had come to them through a very reputable high-end nanny agency, and from day one she showed extraordinary dedication and affection for Lily. "But what choice is that, Natalie? Can you explain it to me?" "I can't explain, Mr. Christopher. I just ask that you understand this isn't an easy decision for me." Christopher was growing more and more confused. Just a week ago, Natalie had mentioned to him how happy she was with the progress Lily was making. The little girl had started talking more, was interacting better with other children at school, and had even begun to show more physical affection, something that used to be very difficult for her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot who are just starting out, now continuing. "Natalie, you know how much Lily likes you. Just yesterday she asked me if you were going to spend the weekend with us, like you always do. How am I going to explain to her that you won't be here anymore?" That question made Natalie cry even harder. Lily had become the light of her life. Working with children with autism required much more than technical knowledge. It required love, patience, and dedication, and Natalie had all of that in abundance. She had studied a lot about the subject, read dozens of books, watched online courses, and even taken some in-person classes to specialize. "I know it's going to be hard for her, Mr. Christopher. That's exactly why I'm suffering so much. But I don't have another option." "What option is that, Natalie? Did you find another job? Did someone offer you more money? Because if that's the case, we can talk. You know how much we value having you here." Natalie shook her head firmly. It wasn't a matter of money, even though her financial situation was tight. Christopher had always been a fair boss. He paid on time, provided all the benefits, and always gave her gifts on special occasions. Last Christmas, he had given her a bonus equivalent to 2 months' salary. "That's not it, Mr. Christopher. It's not the money." "Then what is it?" Natalie hesitated. She really wanted to tell the truth, but she was afraid Christopher would think she was trying to take advantage of the situation or ask for help. She had always been a very proud and independent person, traits she inherited from her grandmother, who had raised her alone since she was 5 years old. "I just need you to accept my resignation and let me go," she said, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Christopher was growing desperate. The thought of losing Natalie panicked him, not only because it would be hard to find another nanny as good, but mainly because he knew the impact it would have on Lily's life. His daughter had a very specific routine, and any big change could cause a setback in her development. "Natalie, please at least give me a week to find a replacement. Lily needs time to adapt." "I can't, Mr. Christopher. I need to leave today." The urgency in her voice made Christopher realize there was something very serious going on. Natalie wasn't an impulsive person. On the contrary, she had always been very responsible and thought carefully before making any decision. If she was resigning so abruptly, it was because something grave was happening. "Natalie, are you in trouble? Is someone threatening you?" Natalie looked at him in surprise. Christopher genuinely cared about her as a person, not just as an employee. That made her heart tighten even more because it made her decision even more painful. "No, sir, no one is threatening me." "Then explain to me what's going on, please." At that moment, they heard Lily's voice coming from the hallway. The girl had arrived from school and was looking for Natalie, as she always did. Christopher saw the despair in the nanny's eyes when she heard the child's voice. "Aunt Natalie, Aunt Natalie, where are you?" Lily ran into the office, her school backpack still on her back and a drawing in her hand. She had curly blonde hair and blue eyes, just like her father. She was a beautiful and intelligent little girl who had learned to trust Natalie in a way that had even surprised the doctors who followed her. "Aunt Natalie, look what I made for you at school today." Lily ran to hug Natalie, as she always did. Natalie bent down to the girl's height and hugged her with all her might. She smelled Lily's hair, trying to store that moment in her memory forever. "What a beautiful drawing, Lily. Did you draw our house?" "Yeah, and here you are." Lily pointed to a female figure next to a smaller figure. "And I'm right here beside you because we love each other a lot, right, Aunt Natalie?" Natalie couldn't hold back her tears. She looked at Christopher, who was watching the scene with a pained expression on his face. He, too, knew how hard it would be to separate the two. "Lily, Aunt Natalie needs to talk to Daddy right now, okay? How about you go to your room and play a little bit? I'll be there soon." "But I want to stay with Aunt Natalie. We always play when I get home from school. Today will be different, my love. Go to your room, please." Lily looked at Natalie and noticed she was crying. The girl, even with her typical autism-related challenges with social cues, could tell when Natalie was sad. "Aunt Natalie, are you sad?" "I'm a little bit, Lily. But it's nothing serious, okay? Can I give you a kiss to make you feel better?" Natalie melted. Lily rarely offered spontaneous physical displays of affection. This was a sign of how much she had grown and how much she trusted Natalie. "Of course you can, my love." Lily gave Natalie a little kiss on the cheek and hugged her again. "There, now you're better. You always do that for me when I'm sad." "Thank you, Lily. Now go play in your room, please. Aunt Natalie will come up in a little bit." Lily left the office satisfied, believing everything was normal. As soon as she left, Natalie broke down in tears again. "Did you see that, Natalie? Did you see how much she trusts you? How much she loves you? How can you just abandon her like this? Do you think this is easy for me?" Natalie stood up, angry and desperate. "Do you think I don't know how much she'll suffer? Do you think I don't know she'll have trouble adjusting to someone else? Of course I do. That's exactly why I'm dying inside." Christopher had never seen Natalie so upset. She had always been calm and composed, even during the toughest moments with Lily. "Then why are you doing this?" "Because I have no choice," Natalie shouted. "I have no choice, Mr. Christopher." Christopher approached her slowly, as if she were a wounded animal that might bolt at any moment. "Natalie, please, tell me what's going on. Maybe I can help." "You can't help me. No one can help me. You don't know that. Let me at least try." Natalie looked at him for a long moment. Christopher was a 38-year-old man, owner of a tech company he had built from scratch, now worth millions. He was known for his intelligence and ability to solve complex problems. But her problem wasn't something money or influence could fix. "All right, I'll tell you. But after I do, you'll understand why I need to leave. Christopher sat down behind his desk and gestured for Natalie to sit as well. She hesitated, but eventually sat in the chair across from him. "My father is in the hospital, Mr. Christopher. He's very sick." Christopher felt an immediate sense of relief. If it was a family health issue, surely he could help somehow. He had the best health insurance plans and knew the top doctors in the city. "Natalie, I'm sorry I didn't know. What does he have? Which hospital is he in?" "He's at the City General Hospital in South Bronx. He has a heart problem that needs urgent surgery." "And what did the doctors say?" Natalie took a deep breath before answering. It was hard to talk about her father's situation without getting emotional. "They said that without surgery, he has at most 2 months. With the surgery, he could live for many more years. But the problem is that the surgery he needs isn't available through the public health service here in New York. He needs to have it done at a private medical center, and it costs a lot of money." "How much does it cost?" $200,000, Mr. Christopher. It's a very complicated surgery, with a highly specialized doctor." Christopher did a quick calculation in his head. $200,000 was a lot of money for Natalie, who earned $3,000 a month working for him. Even if she saved her entire salary, it would take over 5 years to raise that amount. "And you're leaving to work somewhere that pays more?" "Not exactly. I'm going to work 3 different jobs. I already got a part-time nanny position with 2 different families, and at night I'll work as a caregiver for the elderly. Working all 3 jobs, I can earn almost $10,000 a month. In 2 years, I can save up the money for my father's surgery." Christopher was shocked. Natalie was willing to work herself to the bone, practically 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, to get the money to save her father. "Natalie, 2 years is a long time. You said he has 2 months without the surgery." Natalie started crying again. That was exactly the part that most tormented her. "I know that, Mr. Christopher. That's why I'm trying to get a loan from the bank, but they didn't approve it because I don't have collateral. I tried with loan sharks, but they want such high interest that I'd never be able to pay it back. I'm trying to start an online fundraiser, but so far I've only raised $1,000. "And why didn't you ask me for help?" Natalie looked at him in surprise. Christopher's question sounded almost naive to her. "How could I ask my boss for $200,000, Mr. Christopher? You'd think I was trying to take advantage of the situation, or that I was making up a story to get money. Natalie, you've worked for me for 2 years. Do you think I don't know you well enough to know you'd never do something like that?" "But Mr. Christopher, it's $200,000. That's a lot of money. Even for you, who can afford it, it's not a small amount." Christopher got up from his chair and went to the window. $200,000 really wasn't a small amount, but it also wasn't something that would compromise his finances. His company had grossed over $20 million in the previous year, and he had investments that yielded more than that per month. "Natalie, what if I lent you the money?" "Would you do that?" "Of course I would. You could pay me back when you could." Natalie felt a glimmer of hope rise in her heart, but soon remembered an important issue. "But Mr. Christopher, even if I get the money, I can't keep working here full-time. My father will need special care after the surgery, at least for about 6 months. I'll need to stay with him at the hospital, take him to appointments, take care of him at home. It wouldn't be fair to you and Lily for me to stay here receiving a full salary when I won't be able to fully dedicate myself." Christopher understood Natalie's dilemma. She was too principled to accept a salary she couldn't fully earn. "What if we made a different arrangement? What if you officially stayed on as Lily's nanny, but with a more flexible schedule? You could take care of your father and still work here too." "What do you mean?" "You could work part-time here, say from 7 in the morning until noon, and have the rest of the day free to take care of your father. Or you could work every other day. We'll adapt to the situation." Natalie was beginning to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but there was still an issue that bothered her a lot. "Mr. Christopher, you are very kind to want to help me, but I don't feel comfortable being treated differently from the other employees. That could cause problems with the other people who work here. Natalie, you're not just any employee. You're part of our family. Lily loves you like family, and I consider you that way too." These words touched Natalie's heart deeply. She also felt like part of that family. Christopher and his wife Victoria always treated her with so much affection and respect. Victoria was a pediatrician and worked at a private medical center. She was always very attentive to Natalie, asking about her family, her studies, her plans for the future. I love you all very much too, Mr. Christopher. You guys are like family to me, but I'm really scared to accept such a big help and then not be able to pay it back. Natalie, you've already paid it back more than you realize. The way you take care of Lily, the way she's improved under your care, the affection you give her, that's priceless. Right then, Victoria got home from the hospital. She always arrived around 5 in the afternoon and usually found Natalie and Lily playing in the living room or the garden. "Hey everyone, I'm home," she said, walking into the office. As soon as she saw Natalie crying and Christopher with a worried expression, she knew something was wrong. "What's going on here?" "Victoria, Natalie is quitting," Christopher said. "What do you mean?" "Natalie, why?" Victoria came over and sat down next to Natalie. She had always had a very close relationship with the nanny, and the two of them talked a lot about Lily and about life in general. "Mrs. Victoria, my dad is very sick, and I need to take care of him." Victoria was a doctor, so she immediately asked about the details of the illness. Natalie explained the whole situation, and Victoria was shocked to learn that Natalie was willing to give up the job she loved to get money for her father's treatment. "Natalie, why didn't you tell us about this before?" "I didn't want to bother you with my personal problems, Mrs. Victoria." "Natalie, your family. Your problems are our problems too." Victoria looked at Christopher, and the two of them understood each other with just a glance. They had made the same decision. "Natalie, we're going to pay for your father's surgery," Victoria said. "No, Mrs. Victoria, I can't accept that. It's too much money." "Of course you can. And it's not a loan, it's a gift." Natalie was in shock. She hadn't expected such generosity. "I can't accept $200,000 as a gift. That's too much." "Natalie," Christopher said, "last year our company made over $5 million in profit. $200,000 is less than a week's revenue for us. For us, it's an amount that won't make a difference in our lives. For you, it's your father's life. Besides," Victoria added, "you took care of our daughter with so much love and dedication that she improved in ways even the doctors didn't expect. The investment we made in therapists and treatments for Lily was much more than $200,000. And the result you achieved was better than all of them." Natalie couldn't stop crying. She didn't know if she was crying from relief, gratitude, emotion, or all of it at once. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank us," Christopher said. "You just need to keep being who you are and keep taking care of Lily." "But I still don't think I'll be able to dedicate myself fully. My dad is going to need special care." "Natalie," Victoria said, "let me make a suggestion. How about you bring your dad to live here with us? The house is big, there's an extra room. That way you could take care of him and Lily at the same time." Natalie was speechless. This offer went beyond anything she could have imagined. "You would do that?" "Of course we would. Your dad must be a wonderful person since he raised a daughter like you," Christopher said. "You don't even know my dad. How can you make an offer like that?" "Natalie, we trust you completely. If your dad is important to you, he's important to us too," Victoria replied. Natalie thought about her dad, a 58-year-old man who had raised her on his own since her mom left when she was 12. He had always worked as a bricklayer, had always been an honest and hard-working person. When she decided to come to New York, he fully supported her, even knowing he would miss her. "My dad is a very simple person. He might feel out of place in a house like this." "Natalie, our house might be big, but we're simple people too. My dad was a mechanic, and my mom was a seamstress." "I never forget where I came from," said Christopher. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. These words from Christopher made Natalie remember that, despite all the success he had achieved, he had always been a humble person without any arrogance. She recalled several occasions when he had told stories of his humble childhood in rural Illinois. "Let me talk to my father first. If he accepts, I'll accept your offer." "Perfect," said Victoria. "Meanwhile, I'll call my colleague, the cardiologist, and we'll schedule your father's surgery as soon as possible." Natalie stood up and hugged Victoria and Christopher. She couldn't believe that in less than an hour her life had completely changed. From utter despair, she moved to renewed hope. You are angels in my life. I don't know what I did to deserve employers like you. Natalie, you deserve this and so much more, said Victoria. Now come here. Tell me more details about your father's illness. What exactly is the heart problem he has? While Natalie explained the medical details to Victoria, Christopher stepped out to take a work call. Lily appeared at the office door, curious to know why the conversation was taking so long. Aunt Natalie, can I come in? Of course you can, my love. Natalie opened her arms to Lily. Are you still sad? No. Now I'm happy. Very happy. That's good. When you're sad, I get sad too. Victoria watched the interaction between Natalie and Lily with a smile on her face. As a pediatrician and a mother, she knew how rare it was to find someone who connected so well with an autistic child. Natalie had managed to build a bond with Lily that went far beyond their professional relationship. Lily, Aunt Natalie has some really great news to tell you, said Victoria. What news, Aunt Natalie? Aunt Natalie's grandpa is going to come live here with us. Really? I'm going to have a grandpa at home. Lily had never known her grandparents, as Christopher and Victoria's parents had passed away when she was very young. The idea of having a grandpa at home made her very excited. Yes, my love. And he's really cool. You're going to like him a lot. Does he like to play? He loves to play. And he knows how to do lots of fun things with his hands. Natalie's father, Thomas Miller, was indeed very skilled. As a construction worker, he knew how to work with wood, do small repairs and build things. Natalie was sure he and Lily would get along great. Christopher returned to the office after finishing his phone call. Natalie, I just spoke with my driver. He'll pick you up at home early tomorrow morning to take you to the hospital. You talk to your father about our offer, and if he accepts, we'll arrange everything for him to come here. Mr. Christopher, how am I going to explain to my father where the money for the surgery came from? You tell him the truth, Natalie, that your employers wanted to help. He'll be embarrassed. He's very proud. Christopher thought for a moment. He understood that feeling of pride, because he was also someone who didn't like receiving favors. Natalie, how about we tell him that you had a health insurance policy that covered the surgery, but you didn't know? Sometimes people have insurance and don't know about all the coverage. Natalie liked the idea. It would be a little white lie that would spare her father's pride without causing any problems for anyone. I think it could work. My father doesn't understand much about these health insurance things. Perfect. Victoria, can you talk to your colleague, the cardiologist, to schedule an appointment still this week? Yes, I can. I'll call him today. I should be able to schedule it for the day after tomorrow. Natalie felt an immense emotion taking over her. Just a few hours ago, she thought she'd have to give up everything she loved to try and save her father. Now, not only would her father be saved, but she could also keep doing the work she loved. Guys, I need to go to the hospital now and tell my dad the news. He must be worried because I told him I was going to talk to you about the situation today. Go ahead. And Natalie, grab your driver's license. I'll lend you my car to go to the hospital. It's better for you to have the freedom to come and go, Christopher said. Mr. Christopher, I can't drive your car. What if I crash it? Natalie, the car has insurance. Besides, you're an excellent driver. Remember when you took Lily to the doctor last month? You drove perfectly. Christopher went to get the car keys and handed them to Natalie. It was a silver Toyota Camry. An elegant car, but not too flashy. You can return it to me tomorrow. Or if you prefer, you can keep using it while your father is recovering. It'll be easier for taking him to medical appointments. Natalie took the keys with her hands, trembling with emotion. In one day, her life had completely changed. Lily, Aunt Natalie is going out for a little bit, but she'll be back soon, okay? Are you going to get Grandpa? Not today, sweetheart. Today I'm just going to talk to him. Tomorrow I'll bring him to meet you. Awesome. I'm going to draw something really pretty to give him as a present. Natalie kissed Lily on the forehead and said goodbye to Christopher and Victoria. She left that house with a lighter heart than she'd felt in months. On the way to the hospital, Natalie called her best friend Jennifer to share the news. Natalie, how did the talk with your employers go? Jennifer, you won't believe what happened. Natalie told the whole story from the moment she walked into the office crying to the offer to bring her father to live at her employer's house. "Natalie, that's like something out of a movie. Are you sure it's not a dream?" "If it's a dream, I never want to wake up. What a blessed family you've found, my friend. You deserve all this happiness." Jennifer was a nurse and worked at the same City General Hospital where Natalie's father was staying. The two had met there when Natalie was visiting her father and Jennifer was on shift. "Jennifer, can you stop by my dad's room and let him know I'm on my way and that I have some very good news to tell him?" "Of course I can. He was asking about you a little while ago. He was worried because you didn't come by at lunchtime." "I needed to talk to my employers first. I'm heading there now." Natalie drove through the streets of New York with a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in a long time. For months she had carried the weight of knowing her father was sick and that she couldn't afford to help him. Now finally, she saw a real and concrete solution. Arriving at the hospital, Natalie went straight to her father's room. Grandpa Thomas was in bed, reading an old newspaper someone had left in the room. When he saw his daughter coming in, he smiled, but soon noticed something different about her demeanor. "Natalie, what's that look on your face? Looks like you've seen a ghost." "Dad, I have some news for you. Good or bad?" "The best news of our lives." Grandpa Thomas put the newspaper aside and gave his full attention to his daughter. Natalie pulled up a chair and sat very close to the bed. "Dad, remember how I told you I had health insurance through my job?" "I remember." "Well, today I found out that insurance covers the surgery you need." Grandpa Thomas was silent for a moment, processing the information. "What do you mean, Natalie?" "I went to talk to the HR department at the company this morning, and they explained that the employee health plan covers heart surgeries for immediate family members up to $200,000. "And you didn't know that?" "No, Dad, I didn't know." "It's a lot of information, a lot of fine print in the contracts, but the important thing is that we know now, and you'll be able to have the surgery." Thomas Miller started to cry. He was a strong man and rarely showed emotions, but the news took him by surprise. "Sweetheart, does that mean I'm going to get better?" "You will, Dad. You're going to get better. And there's something else." "What else?" "My employers invited you to stay at their place during your recovery. The house is big. There's a spare room, and that way I can take care of you and keep working at the same time." Thomas Miller grew worried. He was a simple man and was afraid of bothering rich, important people. "Natalie, I don't want to cause trouble for your bosses. They're already being very generous." "Dad," they insisted, "besides, there's a little girl there who's dying to meet you. She's never had a grandfather, and she got super excited when she found out you'd be staying there." "A little girl?" "Yeah, Lily. She's 6 years old and she's a sweetheart of a kid. I've been taking care of her for 2 years, and she's like my own daughter." Thomas Miller smiled. He loved children and had always dreamed of having grandchildren to spoil. "And what are your bosses like?" "They're wonderful people, Dad. He owns a tech company. She's a doctor. But they're simple people. No fuss at all. Christopher always told me his father was a mechanic, just like you're a construction worker. He does seem like a good person." "He is, Dad. And Victoria is also a darling. She's a pediatrician, so she'll be able to monitor your recovery too." Thomas Miller was starting to feel more comfortable with the idea. "When will the surgery be?" "Victoria is going to schedule it with a cardiologist friend of hers. It should be this week still." "Wow, that fast." "Yeah, Dad. The sooner the better. You've suffered enough with this situation." At that moment, Jennifer walked into the room. "Hi, Natalie. Hi, Mr. Thomas. How's the conversation going?" "Jennifer, tell her the news," said Thomas Miller, with a smile on his face. Natalie told her friend about the health insurance coverage, keeping to the version they had agreed on, and about the invitation for her dad to stay at the boss's house. "How wonderful, Natalie. Mr. Thomas, you're going to be staying in a mansion," Jennifer joked. "It's not really a mansion, Jennifer. It's a big house, but normal." "Natalie, it might be normal for them, but for people like us who live in a small apartment, any house is big." They laughed at Jennifer's observation. The mood was relaxed and cheerful. very different from previous visits, which had always been heavy with worry and sadness. "Natalie, you need to get the documents ready to start the insurance process," said Jennifer, playing along with the charade. "That's right. Tomorrow I'll take care of that bureaucratic stuff." Thomas Miller stayed in the hospital one more night, but now sleeping much more peacefully. Natalie went back home. She lived in a rented apartment on the east side of New York, with a light heart and full of gratitude. The next day, Natalie woke up early and went to work as usual. Lily asked about Grandpa, and Natalie explained that she still needed a few days to sort everything out, but that he would be there soon. During the morning, Victoria called the cardiologist and managed to schedule an appointment for the next day. The doctor, Dr. Andrew Carter, was a leading figure in cardiac surgeries in New York and had operated on several of Victoria's patients. "Natalie, I managed to schedule it for tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. Dr. Andrew will examine your dad, and if everything checks out, he'll already schedule the surgery for next week." "Mrs. Victoria, I don't know how to thank you." "Natalie, stop thanking me. You've already done so much for this family." In the afternoon, Natalie went to pick up her dad from the hospital. Thomas Miller was discharged to wait for the surgery at home, but with the condition of not doing any physical exertion and taking his medications properly. When they arrived at Christopher and Victoria's house, Thomas Miller was impressed by the size and elegance of the place. It was a 2-story house with a well-kept garden in the front and a pool in the back. "My God, Natalie, this house is beautiful." "It really is, Dad. But you'll see that the people who live here are just as simple as we are." Christopher was working from home that day and came to greet Thomas Miller personally. "Mr. Thomas, welcome." "I'm Christopher. Thank you very much for your hospitality, Mr. Christopher. I hope I won't be too much trouble." "You won't be any trouble at all, Mr. Thomas. This is your home now." Christopher showed Thomas Miller the room he had prepared for him. It was a room on the ground floor, large and comfortable, with a private bathroom and a small balcony overlooking the garden. "Mr. Christopher, this room is better than my entire house. Make yourself at home, Mr. Thomas. Anything you need, just ask Natalie or talk to me directly." Lily was at school, but she had left a drawing on the nightstand in the room. It was a drawing of a little girl holding hands with an older man, with the words, "Welcome, Grandpa Thomas," written in crooked, childlike letters. "How beautiful," said Thomas Miller, moved. "This girl doesn't even know me, and she's already treating me with such kindness." "She's very excited, Dad. Yesterday she couldn't stop talking about you." When Lily got home from school, she ran straight to Thomas Miller's room. She was a shy girl around strangers, but there was something about Thomas Miller that made her comfortable right away. "Grandpa Thomas, did you like the drawing I made for you?" "I liked it very much, Lily. It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen in my life." "Really?" "Really. I'll keep it forever." Lily smiled and moved closer to the bed where Thomas Miller was lying. "Grandpa Thomas, are you sick?" "I'm a little sick, Lily, but I'll get better soon." "Aunt Natalie said you're going to have surgery to get better." "That's right. I'll pray for you to get better quickly." Thomas Miller was touched by the girl's innocence and affection. He took her little hand and said, "Thank you, Lily. Your prayers will help me a lot." Natalie watched the scene with emotion. She could see that her father and Lily had already formed a special connection. The next day, Natalie took her father to the appointment with Dr. Andrew Carter. The doctor ran several tests and confirmed that the surgery was necessary and urgent, but that the chances of success were very good. "Mr. Thomas, you have an 85% chance of a full recovery. It's a complex surgery, but I've performed hundreds just like it. Doctor, when can the surgery be? If you agree, I can schedule it for next Monday. That gives you 5 days to mentally prepare." Thomas Miller looked at Natalie and nodded. "Go ahead and schedule it, Doctor." Dr. Andrew explained all the pre-operative procedures and handed over a list of care that Thomas Miller should follow in the days leading up to the surgery. On the way back home, Thomas Miller was silent. Natalie noticed he was worried. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Natalie, I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared I won't make it through the surgery. What if something goes wrong?" Natalie pulled the car over to the side of the road and held her father's hand. "Dad, you have to have faith, Doctor." Andrew is one of the best cardiologists in the country. And besides, you're strong, you've always been a healthy person. This surgery will go well. And if it doesn't? It will, Dad. It has to. Lily is counting on you, I'm counting on you. You can't give up now. Thomas Miller took a deep breath and nodded. You're right, my daughter. I can't give up now. When they got home, Victoria was waiting to hear about the appointment. She was satisfied to learn that Dr. Andrew had confirmed the diagnosis and said the surgery would be the following Monday. Mr. Thomas, you're in the best hands. Dr. Andrew is fantastic. Dr. Victoria, thank you for setting up this appointment. Of course, Mr. Thomas, it's a pleasure to help. The days leading up to the surgery were special for the whole family. Thomas Miller and Lily developed a beautiful friendship. He told stories from when he was young, taught her how to make paper origami, and she taught him the songs she learned at school. Christopher also grew very close to Thomas Miller. The two talked about work, about life, about the challenges of raising kids. Christopher discovered that Thomas Miller was a wise and experienced person with a lot to teach. Mr. Thomas, you raised an exceptional daughter. Natalie is one of the most dedicated and caring people I've ever met. Thank you, Christopher. She was always a special girl. Ever since she was little, she took care of everyone, always worried about others. And where is her mother? Her mother left when Natalie was 12. She said she didn't want the responsibility anymore, that she wanted to live her own life. Natalie suffered a lot, but she never held a grudge. Christopher was impressed. He didn't know that part of Natalie's story. How did you manage to raise her on your own? It wasn't easy, Christopher, but I always knew she was my priority in life. I worked during the day and spent nights with her, helped with her homework, talked about teenage problems. You must be very proud of her. Very proud, and very happy to know she works for a family that recognizes her worth. On Sunday, the night before the surgery, the family had a special dinner. Victoria cooked dishes that Thomas Miller liked, and Lily made dessert with Natalie's help. During dinner, Christopher made a toast. Mr. Thomas, tomorrow is a very important day. We want you to know that we're all rooting for you and supporting you. This house is your home, and we are your family now. Christopher, you've already done more for me than I deserved. I have no words to thank you. Mr. Thomas, you don't need to thank us. We're the ones who should thank you for letting us meet such a special person as you. Lily raised her little juice cup and said, Grandpa Thomas, tomorrow at school, I'll be thinking about you all the time, and when I get home, you'll be feeling better. For sure, Lily, and when I get out of the hospital, we'll play lots of games together. That night, Natalie had trouble sleeping. Despite all her trust in the doctor and the procedure, she couldn't help worrying. It was a complex surgery, and there were always risks. Around midnight, she went to her father's room to check if he was okay. Thomas Miller was awake, staring at the ceiling. Dad, can't sleep. I'm nervous, Natalie. Natalie sat on the edge of the bed. I'm nervous too, Dad, but I'm sure everything will go right. Natalie, if something happens to me... Dad, don't say that. Let me talk, Natalie. If something happens, I want you to know that these last few days have been the happiest of my life. Seeing you happy, working with people who value you, meeting Lily, being in this house. All this has given me such great peace. Natalie started to cry. Dad, nothing's going to happen. You'll get better, and we'll have many years ahead to be happy. I know, my daughter. Hanno, I just wanted to tell you that in case I don't get the chance later. You'll have plenty of chances to say nice things to me, Dad. Thomas Miller smiled and took his daughter's hand. Natalie, I love you so much. You are the best thing I have in my life. I love you too, Dad, more than anything. The two stayed up talking for hours, reminiscing about special moments they had shared together over the years. On Monday morning, the whole family got up early to accompany Thomas Miller to the hospital. Lily insisted on coming along, even though she knew she would have to miss school. I want to give Grandpa Thomas a good luck kiss, she said. At the hospital, the medical team made the final preparations. Dr. Andrew spoke again with Thomas Miller and the family, explaining the details of the surgery. The surgery should last between 4 and 5 hours. I'll give you updates every hour, so you won't have to worry." When it was time for Thomas Miller to be taken to the operating room, the whole family said their goodbyes. Lily gave him a kiss on the cheek and said, "Grandpa Thomas, when you wake up, I'll be right here waiting." "Thank you, Lily. That kiss will give me a lot of strength." Natalie was the last to say goodbye. She hugged her father tightly and whispered in his ear, "I love you, Dad. See you soon." "I love you too, my dear." Thomas Miller was taken to the operating room at 8 in the morning. Natalie, Christopher, Victoria and Lily stayed in the waiting room, anxious for news. The first hour felt like an eternity. Lily tried to distract herself with games on the tablet, but she kept asking if there was any news from Grandpa Thomas. At 9 o'clock, Dr. Andrew appeared in the waiting room. "Miller family, the first part of the surgery was a success. Everything is going according to plan." Natalie breathed a sigh of relief. The next few hours passed more quickly with Dr. Andrew showing up right on time to give positive updates. At 12:45, Dr. Andrew appeared with a smile on his face. "Everyone, the surgery was a complete success. Mr. Thomas is doing well. The surgery went perfectly." Natalie broke down in tears of relief. Christopher and Victoria hugged her, and Lily celebrated by jumping for joy. "Doctor, when can we see him?" "He's still in the recovery room after the anesthesia. In about 2 hours, he'll be moved to his room, and then you can visit him." The 2-hour wait was calmer. Now they knew Thomas Miller was fine, and it was just a matter of time before they could see him. When they were finally allowed into the room, Thomas Miller was awake, but still a bit groggy from the anesthesia. When he saw Natalie, he smiled. "Hi, my dear." "Hi, Dad. How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. Tired, but fine." Lily approached slowly, a little scared by all the machines connected to Thomas Miller. "Grandpa Thomas, did it hurt a lot?" "No, Lily. It didn't hurt at all. And now I'm going to get better so we can play a lot." Dr. Andrew explained that the recovery would be gradual, but that in a week Thomas Miller would be home, and in a month he could resume normal activities. During the week Thomas Miller was hospitalized, Natalie practically lived at the hospital. Christopher and Victoria took turns taking care of Lily and visiting Thomas Miller. The girl drew pictures every day to take to Grandpa. When Thomas Miller was discharged, the whole family was there to pick him up. He was visibly better, with more color in his face and more energy. "How good it is to get out of here," he said, breathing the fresh air at the hospital door. "Dad, now it's just recovery. From here on, it will only get better." Back at home, Thomas Miller settled back into the room they had prepared for him. Now he could walk short distances, but he still needed rest. Lily was overjoyed to have Grandpa Thomas back. She had missed him a lot during the week. "Grandpa Thomas, I kept all the drawings I made for you this week." "That's great, Lily. I want to see them all." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now continuing. In the weeks that followed, the household routine established itself very naturally. Natalie took care of Lily in the morning, and in the afternoon she dedicated herself to caring for her father. As Thomas Miller recovered, he started helping with small chores around the house. One day, Christopher came home and found Thomas Miller fixing a kitchen faucet that had been dripping for months. "Mr. Thomas, you shouldn't be exerting yourself." "Christopher, this isn't exertion. It's just basic handiwork. That faucet was bothering me." "But we can call a plumber." "Why? I can do this. Let me feel useful." Christopher understood. Thomas Miller was a hard-working man and felt better when he could contribute in some way. "Mr. Thomas, there are several things around here that need fixing. If you'd like and are able to, I'd be very grateful for the help." "Of course I can, Christopher. It's the least I can do for you all." From that day on, Thomas Miller became the household handyman. He fixed several things that were broken, organized the garage, and tidied up the garden. Always careful not to overexert himself, but staying active and useful. Victoria watched Thomas Miller's recovery with a medical eye and was impressed by how fast he improved. "Natalie, your father is recovering much better than expected. The surgery was truly a success." "He's very happy here, Mrs. Victoria. I think that helps with his recovery. It certainly helps. Emotional state greatly influences physical recovery. 2 months after the surgery, Thomas Miller returned to Dr. Andrew Carter for a follow-up appointment. The doctor was impressed with the test results. "Mr. Thomas, you're in perfect shape. Your heart is working like that of a 30-year-old. Doctor, I feel like I'm 30 years old too. You can resume all normal activities, obviously without overdoing it, but you can have a completely normal life." The news made the whole family celebrate. Thomas Miller was officially cured. That night, Christopher proposed a new arrangement. "Mr. Thomas, now that you're fully recovered, we'd like to make an official offer." "What offer, Christopher?" "We'd like you to stay here and live with us permanently. Not as a guest, but as part of the family." Natalie was surprised by the proposal. She had expected that after her father's recovery they would go back to her apartment. "Christopher, you've already done so much for us. We can't keep taking advantage of your generosity." "Natalie, it's not generosity. It's that you've become part of our family. This house feels empty when you're not here." Victoria added, "Natalie, you've brought a joy to this house that wasn't there before. Lily is happier, more sociable, and we're happier too." Lily, who had been listening to the conversation, spoke up. "Aunt Natalie, I want you and Grandpa Thomas to stay here forever." Natalie looked at her father, who nodded with a smile. "If you're sure, or we're absolutely sure," said Christopher. "Then I accept, but with one condition." "What?" "That you let me pay for my father's board." "Natalie, don't even think about it," said Victoria. "Mrs. Victoria, please, I need to do this for my peace of mind. It doesn't have to be much, but I need to contribute." Christopher and Victoria exchanged glances and agreed. They understood it was important for Natalie to maintain her independence and dignity. "All right, Natalie, you can contribute $200 a month toward the household expenses." It was a symbolic amount, very low for the reality of the house, but enough for Natalie to feel she was contributing. With the new arrangement in place, the family's life took on an even more harmonious dynamic. Thomas Miller became a father figure for Lily, teaching her important values and giving her the experience of having a loving and present grandfather. Natalie continued her work as a nanny, but now with the peace of mind of knowing her father was safe and well. She also resumed her studies, taking an extension course in child development at the university. Christopher and Victoria discovered that having a larger family made their lives richer and more meaningful. The house, which had once felt too big for just 3 people, was now always full of life, conversations, and laughter. One day during a family dinner, Lily asked a question that touched everyone's hearts. "Daddy, why don't some kids have grandpas and grandmas, and others have so many?" Christopher thought for a moment before answering, "Lily, family isn't just about the people you're born with. Family is the people who love and take care of each other. So Aunt Natalie and Grandpa Thomas are our family?" "Yes, they are, sweetheart. They're our family of the heart." "That's nice. I like our family of the heart." Natalie and Thomas Miller were moved by Christopher's answer and by Lily's innocence. They had truly become a family, bound not by blood, but by love and mutual care. Months later, Natalie received an unexpected proposal from Christopher. "Natalie, Victoria, and I have been talking, and we'd like to make you an offer." "What kind of offer, Mr. Christopher?" "We'd like you to consider going to college for psychology. You have a natural talent for working with children, especially children with special needs. I think you could help a lot of families." Natalie was surprised. The idea of going to college had always been a dream of hers, but she never had the financial means to make it happen. "Mr. Christopher, I'd love to, but I can't afford college. Natalie will pay for it, as an investment in your future and in Lily's. You could keep taking care of her part-time and study the other half." "I can't accept this. You've already done so much for me and my father." Victoria chimed in. "Natalie, think about it practically. With a college degree, you'll be an even better professional, and Lily will benefit from it." "And after I graduate?" "After you graduate, you can decide whether you want to keep working here or open your own practice. If you decide to open a practice, we can be your investing partners." The offer was tempting, but Natalie still had reservations. "Let me talk to my dad. This is a really big decision. That night, Natalie talked to Thomas Miller about the offer. He was thrilled at the possibility. "Natalie, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You've always been smart. You've always loved to study. Now you can make your dream come true." "Dad, but what if I can't balance work and school? What if my grades are bad?" "Natalie, you're capable of anything you set your mind to. I'm sure of it." With her father's support, Natalie decided to accept the offer. She signed up for the entrance exam at New York University for the psychology program and got a good score. The start of college was challenging. Natalie had to balance classes with work and taking care of Lily. But she discovered she loved studying and had a knack for subjects related to child psychology. Christopher and Victoria supported her in everything, always asking about her classes, helping with assignments when possible, and offering complete flexibility with her schedule. Lily was also proud to have an Aunt Natalie who was in college. She liked watching Natalie study and sometimes imitated her, pretending she was in college too. During her second year of college, Natalie had to do a supervised internship. She got a spot at a specialized pediatric center for children with autism, where she could apply everything she had learned theoretically and also share her practical experience with Lily. The internship was a transformative experience for Natalie. She had worked with dozens of children and their families and realized she had found her true calling. One specific case deeply marked her. It was an 8-year-old girl named Chloe who had recently been diagnosed with autism. Her parents were desperate and didn't know how to handle the situation. Natalie managed to establish a quick connection with Chloe, using techniques she had intuitively developed with Lily. Within a few weeks, the girl showed significant progress. "Natalie," said the internship supervisor, "you have a special gift for working with these children. Have you ever considered specializing in this area?" "Doctor, actually it was working with an autistic child that I discovered my vocation." "That's wonderful. We need more professionals like you." During her 4 years of college, Natalie continued working with Christopher, Victoria, and Lily, but gradually took on more academic responsibilities. Lily, in turn, kept evolving impressively, becoming increasingly sociable and communicative. At the end of her 4th year, Natalie had to present her senior thesis. She chose the topic, "The Importance of Effective Bonds in the Development of Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder," largely based on her experience with Lily. The presentation was a success, and Natalie graduated among the top students in her class. At the graduation ceremony, Christopher, Victoria, Grandpa Thomas, and Lily were in the front row applauding proudly. "Congratulations, Dr. Natalie," Christopher joked as she stepped off the stage. "Thank you, Mr. Christopher. I wouldn't have made it without your support." "Natalie, you succeeded because you have talent and determination. We just gave you the conditions to show it." After graduation, Natalie faced a difficult decision: to keep working at Christopher and Victoria's home or to pursue a career as a psychologist at a clinic or hospital. Christopher and Victoria noticed her dilemma and took the initiative to resolve the situation. "Natalie, we have a proposal for you," Victoria said during a dinner. "What proposal, Mrs. Victoria?" "We'd like to set up a child psychology clinic focused on children with special needs. You would be the lead psychologist and we would be the investors." Natalie was speechless. It was a proposal that united her two passions, working with special needs children and maintaining her bond with the family she loved so much. "You'd do that?" "Of course we would. We've seen your talent throughout all these years, and besides it would be a business. There's a lot of demand for this kind of specialized service." "And how would it work?" "You'd work at the clinic in the morning, seeing other patients. And in the afternoon you'd continue here with Lily, who, even though she no longer needs a full-time nanny, would still benefit from specialized psychological support. And my father. Your father would stay here, as part of our family, just as he always has." Natalie looked at Grandpa Thomas, who nodded with an approving smile. "Dad, what do you think?" "Natalie, I think you should accept. It's the chance to fulfill your professional dreams without giving up the family you love so much." Natalie accepted the proposal, and within 6 months the clinic was up and running. They rented a spacious, modern space in the West Village, equipped it with the latest resources for childcare, and Natalie began seeing her first patients. The clinic quickly became a success. Natalie built an excellent reputation, and there was always a waiting list for appointments. She developed innovative therapy methods, many based on her practical experience with Lily. Lily, now 10 years old, had become a sociable, communicative, and very intelligent girl. She attended regular school, had friends, and played sports. Few people who knew her now could imagine she had been diagnosed with autism. One day, during a therapy session at the clinic, Natalie took on a family that reminded her a lot of her own story. It was a nanny caring for an autistic child, desperate because she didn't know how to help. "Dr. Natalie, I've been taking care of Ethan for 2 years, but I feel like he's not making progress. His parents are thinking about firing me. Tell me a bit about Ethan. How does he behave?" The nanny, named Sarah, described behavior very similar to what Lily had shown years before. Natalie guided her with specific techniques, gave her support materials, and scheduled regular sessions with the child. In 3 months, Ethan showed significant progress. The parents were impressed and asked Natalie to train Sarah so she could apply the techniques at home. "Sarah, you have a gift for this. Have you ever thought about studying psychology?" "Dr. Natalie, I'd love to, but I don't have the financial means." "What if I told you I know about a scholarship program for people like you?" Natalie had created, along with Christopher and Victoria, a scholarship program for people who worked with special needs children and wanted to professionalize in the field. It was a way of giving back to society part of what they had received. Sarah became the first beneficiary of the program. She managed to graduate in psychology and today works at the clinic alongside Natalie. 5 years after the clinic's opening, Natalie had treated over 300 children. Many of them made significant progress, and some, like Lily, were able to fully integrate into society. The clinic became a reference in New York for treating children with special needs. Natalie was invited to give lectures at conferences, write scientific articles, and even teach at the university. But despite all her professional success, Natalie never forgot her roots. She continued living in Christopher and Victoria's house, which had truly become her home. Thomas Miller, now 65, continued being Lily's grandpa and had also become a grandfather by heart to many children who attended the clinic. Lily, at 15, was a brilliant and socially engaged teenager. She volunteered at Natalie's clinic, helping other children who went through the same difficulties she had faced. One day, during a family conversation, Lily made a reflection that deeply touched Natalie. "Aunt Natalie, did you know I remember the day you almost left?" "You remember, Lily?" "Yes, I do. I was little, but I remember you were crying in Dad's office. Back then I didn't understand why, but today I know that if you had left, my life would be completely different." "Why do you think that, Lily?" "Because it was you who taught me to trust people, to show affection, to talk about my feelings. If you weren't here, I'd probably still be that closed-off girl who had a hard time connecting with others." Natalie was moved by Lily's words. She remembered that day, 7 years earlier, when she walked into Christopher's office with a resignation letter in her hand and a broken heart. "Lily, do you know that was the hardest day of my life? I was desperate, thinking there was no way out. And Dad and Mom were your guardian angels, right?" "Yes, they were, my love. They saved not just my father, but our whole family." Christopher, who had been listening to the conversation, came closer. "Natalie, actually, you saved this family. You brought a joy and a love to this house that didn't exist before." "That's true," Victoria agreed. "This house used to be just a place where we slept. You turned it into a home." Thomas Miller, who was reading the newspaper in the armchair next to them, looked up. "You know something? I think everything happened the way it was meant to. If I hadn't gotten sick, Natalie never would have found out how much you all cared about her, and you would have never discovered how important she was to you." "Grandpa Thomas is right," Lily said. "Sometimes bad things happen so that good things can happen afterward." Natalie reflected on these words. Really, if it weren't for her father's illness, she would probably still be just a competent nanny, but she never would have discovered her true calling or had the opportunity to study and graduate. "That's true, Grandpa Thomas. When I was crying in that office, I thought my life was ending. In fact, it was just beginning. That night, Natalie went to her room, which had truly become her room, decorated to her taste and full of her personal belongings, and reflected on her journey. She remembered the simple girl from Chicago who arrived in New York with just one suitcase and a lot of dreams. She remembered the hardships of the early years, the loneliness of living alone in a big city, the nights she cried from missing her father. She remembered the day she arrived at Christopher and Victoria's house to work as a nanny, nervous and insecure. She remembered the first time she saw Lily, a beautiful but distant girl who wouldn't look anyone in the eye and rarely spoke. She remembered all the challenges they faced together. Lily's episodes, the sleepless nights, the medical appointments, the frustrating moments when it seemed like there was no progress. She remembered the love that grew slowly, day after day, until Lily became like a daughter to her, and Christopher and Victoria like siblings, and that house like her true home. And she remembered especially that terrible day, 7 years earlier, when she had to choose between her dream job and her father's life. A choice that seemed impossible, but that ended up not being necessary thanks to the generosity and love of people she had considered only employers until then. Natalie picked up a photo from the nightstand. It was a family photo taken last Christmas. Christopher, Victoria, Lily, Grandpa Thomas, and her, all hugging in front of the Christmas tree, smiling genuinely. Anyone who saw that photo would think it was a traditional family, united by blood ties. But Natalie knew the ties that bound them were much stronger than blood. They were ties of chosen love, mutual care, gratitude, and reciprocity. They were ties forged in hardship, tested in adversity, and strengthened every day through small gestures of affection and dedication. The next day, Natalie woke up early as she always did. She made breakfast for the family, woke Lily up for school, chatted with Grandpa Thomas about the plans for the day, and got ready for another day of work at the specialized pediatric center. But before leaving the house, she did something she rarely did. She stopped at the door of the office where, 7 years earlier, she had almost handed in a resignation letter. Christopher was there, working as usual, focused on his papers and spreadsheets. When he noticed Natalie at the door, he looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Natalie. Everything okay?" "Good morning, Mr. Christopher. Everything's great." "Do you need something?" Natalie hesitated for a moment, then entered the office and approached the desk. "Mr. Christopher, I just wanted to thank you." "Thank you for what, Natalie?" "For stopping me from leaving that day." Christopher stopped writing and looked at Natalie attentively. "Natalie, you never needed to thank me for that. It was the best decision I ever made in my life." "For me too. It was the best thing that ever happened. Not just because you saved my father, but because it allowed me to discover who I truly am. Natalie, you always knew who you were. You just needed a chance to show it." "Maybe. But the chance you all gave me." Christopher stood up and walked over to Natalie. "Natalie, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "That day when you walked in here crying with a resignation letter in your hand, I felt a pain in my chest like I'd never felt before. It wasn't just because it would be hard to find another nanny for Lily. It was because I realized you had become part of our family, and the thought of losing you was unbearable." "Really? Really? In that moment I realized you weren't an employee to me. You were like a younger sister I wanted to protect and help." Natalie was moved by Christopher's confession. "Mr. Christopher, you've also become like a brother to me. You and Mrs. Victoria are the family I always dreamed of having. And Lily. Lily is the daughter I never had, but God placed in my life for me to care for and love. And your father. My father is living the best years of his life here. He feels useful, loved, part of a big, loving family." Christopher smiled and hugged Natalie. "Natalie, thank you for agreeing to stay. Thank you for making this house a home. Thank you for taking care of Lily as if she were your own daughter. Thank you for bringing your father to be part of our family. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for stopping me from making the worst decision of my life." When Natalie arrived at the specialized pediatric center that morning, her heart was lighter and more grateful than ever. She spent the day seeing her little patients, each with their own quirks and challenges, but all needing the same love and dedication she had learned to give through Lily. At the end of the day, when she returned home, Natalie found a scene that had become routine, but still moved her. Lily doing homework at the kitchen table while Grandpa Thomas helped her with math, Christopher working on his laptop beside them, and Victoria preparing dinner while telling them about her day at the hospital. It was a simple, everyday scene, but it represented everything Natalie had almost given up 7 years before. "Dr. Natalie's home," Lily shouted when she saw her walk in. "Hey everyone, how was your day?" "Great. Grandpa Thomas taught me a new way to do division," Lily said. "And I fixed the guest bathroom shower that was acting up," said Thomas proudly. "And I closed a very important deal with an American company," said Christopher. "And I saved 2 patients' lives today," said Victoria without any pretense. Natalie laughed at how each of them summed up their day, each one contributing in their own way, each one important in their own way, each one loved in their own way. "And you, Natalie, how was your day?" Victoria asked. "My day was perfect. I saw 6 kids, and all of them showed some kind of progress. And the best part was coming home and finding you all here." "This has always been your home, Natalie," said Christopher. "I know, and this has always been my place." During dinner, Lily asked a question that caught everyone off guard. "Aunt Natalie, are you ever going to get married?" Natalie almost choked on her food. It was a question she sometimes asked herself but had never discussed with the family. "Why are you asking that, Lily?" "Because some of my friends asked if you were single, and I said yes. Then they asked why you didn't date, and I didn't know what to say." Natalie looked at the other family members who were clearly interested in the answer. "Lily, I think I've never found the right person. Besides, I'm really happy with how my life is right now." "But don't you want to have kids?" Lily insisted. "I have you, don't I? You're like a daughter to me." Lily smiled, satisfied with the answer. "But if you find someone nice, you can bring him to meet us, okay?" "Okay, Lily. If I find someone special, I'll bring him to meet the family." Victoria seized on the subject. "Natalie, you know we'd love to see you happy with someone, and that person would be very welcome in our family." "I know, Mrs. Victoria, but for now I'm focused on my career and taking care of you all." "Natalie," said Thomas Miller, "you're still young, you're only 33. You still have plenty of time to find someone special." "I know, Dad, but I'm not desperate about it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, that's fine too." Christopher, who had stayed quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke up. "Natalie, the most important thing is that you are happy, and we can see that you are happy. But if one day you want to start your own family, we'll support you and celebrate with you." "And if I get married, do you think my husband could live here too?" Natalie joked. "Of course," said Lily. "The house is big. There's a spare room." Everyone laughed at Lily's spontaneity. "There's just one condition," said Christopher, also joking. "He has to like Lily and Mr. Thomas." "And he has to know how to play dominoes," added Thomas Miller. "And he has to help with the chores," said Victoria. "Wow, you guys are going to scare off any potential suitor of mine," laughed Natalie. "If he gets scared by those little things, he's not right for our family anyway," said Lily very seriously. The light-hearted conversation during dinner showed Natalie how much she was loved and accepted by that family. They not only accepted her for who she was, but also supported her dreams and future plans, even if it meant changes in the family dynamic. 3 years after this conversation, fate played an interesting trick on Natalie. During a child psychology conference in Washington, D.C., she met Dr. Daniel Brooks, a psychologist specializing in family therapy who was presenting a paper on families of children with special needs. Natalie was impressed by Daniel's presentation and approached him during the coffee break to ask some technical questions. The conversation flowed naturally, and they discovered they had a lot in common, both professionally and personally. Daniel was a 38-year-old man from a humble background like Natalie, who had specialized in family therapy because he wanted to help families going through difficulties similar to those he had faced in his own childhood. During the 3 days of the conference, Natalie and Daniel spent a lot of time talking. She was impressed by his intelligence, sensitivity, and humility. Daniel, in turn, was fascinated by the work Natalie was doing and her story of overcoming challenges. On the last day of the conference, Daniel invited Natalie to dinner. "Natalie, I'd really like to continue our friendship when we get back to New York. Can I call you? Of course, Daniel. It would be a pleasure to keep talking to you. They exchanged numbers, and when Natalie got back to New York, she couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. Over the following weeks, they talked every day on the phone. Daniel showed genuine interest in Natalie's life, asking about Lily, about Thomas Miller, about the specialized pediatric center. A month after the conference, Daniel invited Natalie to a date in New York. Natalie, I'd really like to get to know you better in person. Can I take you to dinner on Saturday? Natalie got nervous. It had been a long time since she'd gone out with anyone, and she knew she'd have to tell the family about Daniel. During Friday's dinner, Natalie gathered her courage to bring up the subject. Guys, I need to tell you something. What is it, Aunt Natalie? Asked Lily. I met someone during the conference in Washington, D.C., a psychologist named Daniel, and, prompted Victoria. And he invited me to dinner tomorrow. Lily clapped her hands. That's so cool, Aunt Natalie. You're going to date. Easy, Lily, it's just dinner. We're getting to know each other. Christopher smiled. Natalie, great. Tell me more about him. Natalie told him everything about Daniel, his education, his specialization, his personality, his values. Sounds like an interesting person, said Victoria. And when are we going to meet him? Asked Thomas Miller. Dad, we haven't even gone out yet. You're already thinking about meeting him. Natalie, if it's going to be something serious, it's better we meet him soon, Christopher joked. Aunt Natalie, if he's nice, bring him over for dinner, said Lily. On Saturday, Natalie carefully got ready for the date. She was nervous but also excited. It had been a long time since she felt this way. Daniel took her to dinner at an elegant yet cozy restaurant. The conversation flowed naturally, as it always did between them. He asked about Natalie's family, showing genuine interest in getting to know the people who were important to her. Natalie, you talk about Lily with such affection that it sounds like you're talking about your own daughter. That's exactly how I feel, Daniel. She's like a daughter to me. And your employers, do you consider them family too? Daniel, they haven't been my employers for a long time. They are my family. Christopher and Victoria are like siblings to me. Daniel was impressed by the loving way Natalie spoke about her family. That's really beautiful, Natalie. It's not common to find such a close-knit family. It really is special. And you, Daniel, what's your family like? Daniel told her about his family. Simple parents from rural Illinois, a younger sister who was a teacher, and a 10-year-old niece he adored. Actually, it was because of my niece that I specialized in family therapy. She had some difficulties at school, and I saw how important it is to have the right support. That's lovely, Daniel. That's what I admire most about people like you, using your personal experiences to help others. During dinner, Natalie realized that Daniel was exactly the kind of person she could introduce to her family. He showed values similar to hers, the importance of family, simplicity, generosity, professional dedication. At the end of the night, when Daniel dropped her off at home, he said, Natalie, I'd really like to see you again. And I'd also really like to meet that special family of yours. Daniel, I really enjoyed our night too. And about meeting my family, I'll think about the best time for that. It doesn't have to be now, whenever you're comfortable. Natalie walked into the house with a smile on her face. Lily, who was still awake doing homework, ran over to ask about the date. So, Aunt Natalie, how was it? It was really good, Lily. Is he nice? Yes, very nice. And when is he coming over? Lily, slow down. We're still getting to know each other. Over the next few months, Natalie and Daniel saw each other several times. They went to the movies, parks, restaurants, always talking a lot and getting to know each other better. Natalie realized she was falling in love with Daniel. He was exactly the kind of man she could build a life with. Intelligent, caring, dedicated, with values similar to hers. Daniel was also falling in love with Natalie. He admired her professional dedication, her love for family, her humility despite the professional success she had achieved. After 3 months of dating, Natalie decided it was time for Daniel to meet her family. Daniel, would you like to come over for dinner on Saturday? It's time for you to meet my family. I'd love to, Natalie. I'm looking forward to meeting those special people. Just warning you, they're going to ask you 1,000 questions. You'd better be prepared. I expect that. It means they care about you. On Saturday, Daniel arrived promptly at 7 o'clock. Natalie greeted him at the door and took him to meet the family. "Everyone, this is Lucas," said Natalie, visibly nervous. Lucas greeted each one politely and warmly. He brought flowers for Victoria, a bottle of wine for Christopher, a book on woodworking for Grandpa Thomas, and an educational game for Lily. "Wow, you came prepared," joked Christopher. "Natalie told me a bit about what everyone likes. I wanted to show my respect for you all." During dinner, Lucas patiently answered all of the family's questions. He told them about his education, his family, his career plans, his values. Lily, who was shy at first, started to brighten up as the conversation flowed. "Lucas, do you like kids?" "I love them, Lily. I work with families who have kids every day. And do you know how to play?" "I sure do. I have a niece your age and we play a lot." "That's great. If you marry Aunt Natalie, we can play together." Everyone laughed at Lily's spontaneity. Lucas replied warmly, "If I'm lucky enough to marry Aunt Natalie, I'd love to play with you." Grandpa Thomas, who had been watching Lucas all night, finally gave his verdict. "Lucas, you seem like a serious and hard-working young man, and most importantly, we can see you really care about Natalie." "I do, Mr. Thomas. A lot." Victoria took the chance to ask a question that was on everyone's mind. "Lucas, you know Natalie has a very strong bond with this family, right? We're very close." "Yes, I know, Victoria, and I think that's wonderful. One of the things I admire most about Natalie is how much she values family. I would never try to take her away from you all." Christopher asked the most direct question. "Lucas, what are your intentions with Natalie?" Lucas looked at Natalie, who turned red with embarrassment, and then looked at Christopher. "Christopher, I'm in love with Natalie. If she wants, I'd like to build a life with her." "And where would that life be?" asked Grandpa Thomas. "Wherever Natalie wants. If it's here, I'll adapt. If it's somewhere else, we'll talk and decide together." Lily clapped her hands. "I want it to be here. That way we'll still be a big family." Lucas smiled at Lily. "I'd like it to be here too, Lily. You all seem like a wonderful family." At the end of the night, when Lucas left, the family gathered to discuss the impression he had made. "So everyone, what did you think?" asked Natalie anxiously. "He's a sweetheart," said Lily. "I really liked him." "He seems like a serious, good-natured person," said Grandpa Thomas. "He's polite, intelligent, and most importantly, he seems to really care about you," said Victoria. "And the key thing, he understands we're a package deal," said Christopher. "He doesn't just want you alone, he wants you with all the baggage that comes with it." Natalie sighed with relief. The family's approval was very important to her. "Do you think I should keep seeing him?" "Natalie," said Victoria, "you're glowing. We haven't seen you this happy in a long time." "That's true, Natalie," Christopher agreed. "You deserve to be happy in love too." 1 year after that introduction, Lucas proposed to Natalie. He did it at home during a family dinner, so everyone could be part of the special moment. "Natalie Miller," said Lucas, kneeling in the living room where, years before, Natalie had almost quit her job. "Will you marry me?" Natalie started to cry with emotion. Lily screamed with joy. Grandpa Thomas stood up to hug Lucas, and Christopher and Victoria clapped, moved. "Yes, Lucas! Of course I will!" The wedding was set for 6 months later. Natalie wanted a simple ceremony, but Christopher and Victoria insisted on throwing a beautiful party for her. "Natalie, you're like a daughter to us. We want to give you the most beautiful party in the world, but it's going to be too expensive. Natalie, after everything you've done for this family, this is the least we can do." The party was truly beautiful. About 150 people were invited. Co-workers from the specialized pediatric center, college friends, Daniel's family, and all of Natalie's patients who had already been discharged. Lily was the maid of honor, wearing a pink dress she picked out herself. Grandpa Thomas walked Natalie down the aisle in the place where the bride's father would have been. Christopher gave a moving speech about how Natalie had changed the entire family's life. "Natalie came to our house 10 years ago as a nanny. Today she leaves here as a daughter, a sister, a friend. She turned our house into a home, our family into a real family. Daniel, you're getting much more than a wife. You're getting a whole family." After the wedding, Daniel moved into the family home. He adapted perfectly to the household dynamics and became just another family member. Natalie's room was expanded to accommodate the couple, and Daniel set up a small office where he could see some private patients. 2 years after the wedding, Natalie and Daniel had their first child, a boy they named Christopher, in honor of the man who had changed the course of Natalie's life. Lily, now 18, fell in love with her little adoptive brother and became the most dedicated nanny in the world. Grandpa Thomas, at 70, finally became a real grandfather, fulfilling a lifelong dream. "You know what?" said Grandpa Thomas, holding his grandson in his arms. "It was worth getting sick 10 years ago. If it hadn't happened, we would never have met this wonderful family, and this beautiful little grandson would never have been born." Natalie looked around the room, Daniel playing with Lily, Christopher and Victoria doting on their grandson, Grandpa Thomas telling stories to the baby. It was a perfect family scene, full of love and harmony. She remembered again that day, 10 years earlier, when she walked into Christopher's office with a resignation letter in her hand. Back then, she thought her life was ending. In reality, she was just beginning to truly live. All the hardships she had faced, the poverty, her mother's absence, her father's illness, almost losing her job, had been necessary to bring her to that moment of complete happiness. Natalie realized that sometimes you have to go through the darkest valley to reach the highest mountain peak, and sometimes the people who seem like strangers at first become the most important family in our lives. A year later, Natalie and Daniel had a daughter, whom they named Victoria, in honor of the doctor who had become like a mother to Natalie. The house, which had already been expanded several times to accommodate the growing family, now had 8 residents: Christopher, Victoria, Lily, who had decided to live there during college, Natalie, Daniel, Grandpa Thomas, and the 2 babies. It was a house full of life, laughter, conversations, love. Exactly the kind of family Natalie had dreamed of having when she was a motherless girl in Chicago. Lily graduated in education and decided to work at Natalie's specialized pediatric center, specializing in inclusive education for children with special needs. She had a special sensitivity for this work because she knew exactly what it was like to be on the other side of the situation. "Aunt Natalie," said Lily on her graduation day, "I want to help other children the way you helped me. I want to show them that it's possible to overcome any difficulty when you have love and support." Natalie's specialized pediatric center had become one of the most respected in New York. She had expanded services to include family therapy, Daniel's area of expertise, inclusive education, Lily's area, and even a support program for caregivers and nannies who worked with special needs children. The scholarship program they had created had already benefited more than 50 people who graduated in different areas related to childcare and now worked helping other families. Thomas Miller, at 72 years old, had become the grandpa not only of the family, but of the entire clinic. He helped with small repairs, took care of the garden, and most of all, told stories to the children who were in the waiting room. "Mr. Thomas," said one of the patient mothers one day, "my son is always eager to come here because he knows he'll get to hear your stories." "That's great, Mrs. Maria. Kids like stories, and I like telling them. Everyone's happy." Christopher had become one of the most respected businessmen in New York, not just because of the success of his tech company, but mainly because of his social responsibility practices. He had implemented in his company the same values he practiced at home: caring for people, supporting them in tough times, and valuing family. Victoria had specialized even further in pediatrics and become a reference in caring for children with special needs. She worked part-time at the hospital and part-time at Natalie's clinic, combining medicine and psychology to offer more comprehensive care. One special afternoon, exactly 10 years after that fateful day at the office, Natalie was organizing some papers at the clinic when she found an old folder with documents from the start of her career. Among the papers, she found something that moved her. It was the resignation letter she had written 10 years earlier, but that she had never officially handed in because Christopher didn't accept it. Natalie read the letter again, remembering the despair she felt when she wrote it. "Mr. Christopher, for personal and family reasons I cannot explain, I need to resign immediately from my position as nanny. I apologize for not being able to give proper notice, but I have no choice. I appreciate the trust you have placed in me over these 2 years. Sincerely, Natalie Miller." Reading those lines, Natalie could hardly believe she had been the one to write that. Back then, she truly thought she had no choice, that life was forcing her to give up everything she loved. Today she knew there are always choices, even when it seems there aren't. And sometimes the best choice is to trust the people who love us and ask for help when we need it. Natalie framed the letter and hung it on the wall of her office, not as a bad memory, but as a reminder of overcoming. Whenever she looked at that letter, she remembered how life can change completely in a matter of hours when we meet the right people at the right time. The following week, Natalie received a phone call that moved her deeply. It was from a woman named Patricia, who had worked as a nanny for the Ferreira family a few years earlier. "Dr. Natalie, my name is Patricia. I heard about your story through a friend of mine who worked at Mr. Christopher's house. I'm going through a very similar situation to what you went through a few years ago." Natalie asked Patricia to tell her story. She'd been caring for an autistic boy for 3 years and had developed a very special relationship with him. But recently, her mother had been diagnosed with cancer and needed expensive treatment that Patricia couldn't afford. "Dr. Natalie, I'm thinking about quitting so I can work multiple jobs and save money faster. But I'm afraid of hurting Gabriel, the boy I take care of." Natalie felt her heart ache. It was exactly the same situation she had lived through 10 years earlier. "Patricia, have you talked to your employers about the situation?" "No, doctor. I'm embarrassed. I don't want them to think I'm asking for money." "Patricia, can I give you some advice?" "Of course, doctor." "Talk to them. Sometimes people are much more generous and understanding than we think. If they value your work, they'll want to help you." "Do you really think so?" "I do. And you know why? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And if it hadn't, I would never have become who I am today." Natalie told her story to Patricia from the day she almost quit all the way to the present. Patricia cried with emotion as she listened to the account. "Dr. Natalie, you've given me hope. I'm going to talk to my employers tomorrow." 2 weeks later, Patricia called Natalie again. "Dr. Natalie, I wanted to thank you for the advice. I talked to my employers, and not only did they pay for my mother's treatment, but they also offered me a scholarship to study psychology. They said they wanted to help me grow professionally." Natalie smiled, remembering how life sometimes repeats itself in beautiful ways. "That's wonderful, Patricia. You'll see how this experience will transform your life." "Dr. Natalie, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you still live at your former employer's house?" "I do, Patricia. With my husband, my 2 children, my father, and my family of the heart. We're a big, happy family." "That's beautiful. Someday I want to have a family like that." "You will, Patricia. We build families with love, not just with blood." This conversation with Patricia made Natalie reflect on how her story had become an inspiration for others. She decided to write a book telling her journey, hoping to help others going through similar situations. The book, titled The Family I Chose, was a success. Natalie told her entire story in an honest and moving way, showing how it's possible to turn difficulties into opportunities when we have the courage to ask for help and accept love. The book launch was held at the clinic itself, with the whole family and dozens of patients and former patients in attendance. Christopher gave the presentation. "This book tells the story of a brave young woman who transformed our family. But more than that, it tells the story of how love can overcome any obstacle when it finds people willing to love back." During the launch, Lily, now a respected educator, gave an emotional speech. "Natalie wasn't just my nanny. She was my life teacher, my second mother, my best friend. She taught me that being different doesn't mean being less, and that with love and dedication, we can overcome any challenge. Today, I work helping other children like I used to be, and I know I can do that because I had Natalie as an example." Thomas Miller, proud of his daughter, also wanted to speak. 15 years ago, I thought my life was ending when I got sick. In truth, my life was just beginning. Today I have a beautiful family, wonderful grandchildren, and the certainty that I raised a daughter who makes a difference in many people's lives. Daniel, holding his young son in his arms, talked about how he had been welcomed by the family. When I met Natalie, I fell in love not just with her, but with her whole family. They welcomed me with open arms and made me feel a part of something very special. Today our children are growing up surrounded by love, and I know they'll learn the same values Natalie learned in this family. Victoria, who had already become a second mother to Natalie, closed the speeches. Natalie came into our life as an employee, but she quickly became much more than that. She taught us the true meaning of family. Today, when I look at our house full of children, grandchildren, sons-in-law and joy, I know none of this would exist if Natalie hadn't had the courage to stay that day 15 years ago. Natalie's book became a bestseller and was translated into several languages. She started being invited to give lectures all over the country, always telling her story and encouraging people not to give up on their dreams. But regardless of the success of the book, the clinic, or her career, Natalie knew that her greatest achievement was the family she had built. A family that began with tears of despair and turned into laughter of happiness. Today, every time she walks past the door of the office where she almost quit 15 years ago, Natalie says a prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for having found people who saw beyond her tears and recognized her potential. Gratitude for learning that family is so much more than blood ties. Gratitude for discovering that sometimes the most desperate moments of our lives are just the prelude to the happiest moments. And whenever a new nanny or caregiver reaches out to the clinic asking for help, Natalie tells her story and repeats the words she learned from Christopher 15 years ago. Sometimes the best decision is to trust the people who love us and ask for help when we need it, because a real family is the one that stands by our side in both happy times and painful ones. The story of Natalie Miller, the nanny who almost left but ended up finding a family, continues to be told and retold, inspiring people all over Brazil to believe in the transformative power of love and human generosity. The end. And you? What did you think of this story of overcoming and family love? Can you imagine making a decision as difficult as the one Natalie faced? Leave in the comments which part moved you the most and whether you believe Christopher and Victoria made the right decision in helping Natalie. Also share if you've ever lived through or know of a story similar to this one. Don't forget to leave your like if the story touched your heart. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one. Your participation is very important to us. Thank you so much for your company, and see you in the next story.